Creativity and creative thinking are tremendous, but we've all experienced times when we have needed to wrestle through some or all of the process. With that in mind, we've designed the Creative Wrestle to be a space to learn, reflect, and steal from a broad range of like-hearted creatives. We speak with artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, production directors, strategists, storytellers, and many more on their inspirational and unique approaches to the creative process. This is the Creative Wrestle with Lauren and Renee.
This episode is brought to you by Brown Fox Creative House. Brown Fox Creative House helps founders and brands turn big ideas into unforgettable impact. They take a holistic approach, blending strategy, storytelling, and data-driven creativity to launch brands, lead culture, and inspire action. With people and emotion at the centre, Brown Fox Creative House creates work that moves audiences to action. Go say hi on socials at Brown Fox Creative House or visit brownfox.com.au.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the first episode of the Creative Wrestle, our brand new podcast. I'm here with Lauren Oduko. Hi, friend.
Hello. Here we are.
We are launching the podcast. I'm so excited. It's been a long time coming, but the delay is no more. We get to show you all of the episodes that we've been creating. But first things first, a few quick intros. Between us, we wear a lot of hats: illustrator, art and design teacher, musician, consultant, strategist, and project manager.
Yes, and the third member of our crew is our producer, Nathan Konatia. So he's an accomplished producer, a musician, audio engineer, and an editor. And you'll get to hear from all three of us during our B-side segment that's at the end of each episode.
Absolutely. You are going to love it. Now, every great thing begins with an idea. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about the concept of the Creative Wrestle.
Yes. So really our idea came from this shared curiosity that we both have to learn from other creatives on their process, their wrestle from ideation all the way through to delivery. And this is where we get to have those chats.
Absolutely. And we are so excited to create this space. So today's episode is slightly different. Lauren and I are going to have a conversation on creativity. But in our standard episodes, what can we expect, Lauren?
Yes, so each episode will feature a special guest, a creative thinker, and we speak to artists, strategists, designers, and pioneers on their process, their journey, their origin stories, and it's a lot of fun.
So on creativity, let's establish our view on what it is.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My definition is straight from the dictionary, actually. It's something that I had to look up, and I'll talk about this a little bit later as to why that was so interesting to me. But my definition that I use often is creativity is bringing something into existence that doesn't yet exist.
Yes.
Can you build on that for us, Lauren? Tell us what your thoughts on creativity are.
Sure. My thoughts on creativity. So I think, something that we've unpacked over the conversations is that it does look different, or the definition of creativity does look different to a lot of people. So
yeah,
for me, I think it makes me excited. I love creativity. It's original thought. It's beating new ground. It's problem solving. It's risk taking. It's play. It's that spark. It feels like magic. Sometimes it feels like a spiritual thing. It's just,
wow.
It's that higher order thinking. And it's so exciting. It's that thing that just fills up my dopamine, buckets to the brim. But creativity, when I was studying teaching, we were taught about Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy of thinking. And it really changed how I saw creativity, because I think it's not given the level of respect it deserves, because it is genius. Creativity is genius. Yes. And I think some of us have had the experience in schools where other areas of academia are given more respect.
Yes,
so it was interesting, elevated, yes, as the one way to be successful, or one way to be intelligent. But it was interesting when we were looking at Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy is we have remembering at the very bottom, in the levels of thinking, lower order thinking. Lower order thinking starts with remembering and then understanding, and then you go on to applying and analysing. And then you're moving up towards evaluating, and the top one is creating. The highest level of thinking, the highest in Bloom's taxonomy,
yes,
is creating. And that just I thought that was so cool because, I'm not so great with the remembering.
But it is so cool because it's actually something worth giving weight and honor to, because it is something that you actually have to push through. There's rigor. There's identity associated with it. There's this myth I grew up thinking is that artistic creatives, it just kind of happened and they just kind of thought long enough and out came the idea and the art, whatever that looked like. And it was just super, it was just very organic and natural. But actually the more I learn about it and listening to all of our guests is that there is so much process and push to this thing, which I think doesn't get the weight that it deserves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing is, I think a lot of us grew up thinking creativity is an arty thing exclusively.
Yeah.
That's just the arty people, the creative people. But definitely my definition has grown over the years because I truly believe that everyone is creative. We're designed to be creative.
I love that. So am I correct in thinking, Lauren, you believe everyone is creative?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of our design. We're all designed to be creative. We all have the capacity to think creatively. I think a huge part of why some people might not be utilizing that to its full potential is maybe mindset. Maybe they haven't been told that they can, haven't got the understanding that they can, or the bravery even, or the risk taking to give something a try. And I think it's interesting, actually, there was this thing that went around social media about Dr. George Land's study I think it was in the 60s. It was with NASA, and he tested 1,600, I think it was 3 to 5 year olds, and 98% of them came out as having genius level creativity. That's not saying the other 2% didn't have creativity. It just means that 98% of them had genius level creativity.
Amazing.
And then he tested those same kids again at 10 years old, and it had dropped to 30%. 30% of those 1,600 genius level creativity. At 15, 12% had genius level creativity. And then once they hit adulthood, it had dropped to 2%, still had genius level creativity. And I thought that was shocking. That was, I thought that was scary, particularly as a parent.
Absolutely. And what you're going to find out about Lauren and I as you listen through the episodes is that we both have these fabulous herd of kids, brood, school.
Sure.
Many kids, a flock of children who are also creative, and we are actually aiming to be the type of intentional parents who create space and language and risk to bring out this creativity in our children. But that study absolutely is shocking. And I do remember seeing that a couple of times doing the rounds on social media and thinking, okay, what can we do about that? And that's really some of the essence of this podcast, is that we add our voice to the mix. Creativity it's not I wouldn't say necessarily buzzword, but you're hearing it a lot more at the moment. People are exploring the meaning, their understanding of it. I believe the definition is broadening to the correct space to include strategists, pioneers, of course, the arts, music, poetry, pottery, illustration, all of the gamut, but equally the thinkers, the people who are out of the box. They want to push the envelope on solution and think and with fresh eyes, saying, okay, is there anything else we haven't thought about in this space? Is there anything else that we need to push into? And that is exciting to me, is that we're opening the door a little bit more for more people to understand a bit of their God-given design, understand their uniqueness. They're not rebellious. They're not trying to disrupt. They're actually trying to stretch out the space so that more ideas and solutions can flow. And I just think that's really cool. Yeah.
There might be a little bit of rebellion and rule breaking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Just a little bit.
I like to call it cheeky, maybe, like it's a softer sort of expression.
So it was interesting with that study. There were some theories as to why that dropped off.
Yeah, great. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, so one of the suggestions made is that it is, the education system, that we use rote learning, that we teach to standardized tests, that so much is results-based. And a huge part of creativity is experimentation. And sometimes that fails, sometimes it takes a long time and sometimes the outcome isn't what you thought it would be. So maybe there isn't enough room for it in schooling, in the current, in the education system. And that's not to, give teachers a bad rap. I'm a teacher. I've seen so many teachers pour their heart into fostering creativity in the classroom. But it definitely is, it is a challenge with the hoops that have to be jumped through. So that's definitely one reason. Another one is a neurological reason. So it's like, basically it's use it or lose it. So it's a muscle. And those pathways, if you're using those pathways, more often they're going to strengthen and your brain prunes the ones that it doesn't use. And I know that you've used that language before. Could you unpack that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think we're tapping into the language around innovation. And so when you have constraints in a classroom like time and number of children and one or two teachers, you don't always have the availability for innovation, because innovation takes time and energy, and it's R&D land. And so innovation is definitely part of creativity. And when we talk about innovation, we also have to talk about mindsets in the brain. And you've unpacked this. We learned this fabulous scientific language and expression from Dr. Caroline Leaf maybe 20 years ago, actually, but it's become such a vital part of my exploration of all of this, but also how I help others in this space, is the term neuroplasticity. And basically that means that our brain is malleable.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this, if you don't use it, you lose it. But it's also really important to have the right identity and framing around creativity and innovation. And often you see that and I think this comes into play with children through to adulthood and the levels of genius dropping in this space, is potentially people, yes, they have the constraints of time and needing to do other things, but also maybe they lose the value of actually framing themselves as a creative and labeling themselves and believing that they are. And when we don't, when we kind of dismiss the sense that we're creative, then I think it dulls it. It actually...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so a personal story for me was, and I think I talk about this a little bit further on, is that maybe 8 to 10 years ago, there was a few people in my life who started to really call that out in me and say, hey, you're really creative. This is, an area of you need to really learn and understand and develop. And I really quite vehemently denied it and actually sort of said, that's actually not who I am. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Do you want another coffee? But then it really kept coming back to me, this sense of, you really need to dive into this. And that's when I looked it up in the dictionary and decided to understand the actual breadth of what it meant. And particularly in my space, I like to disrupt systems that aren't correct. In a social justice space, in people's thinking, in people's rigor and solution and all this type of thing. And it actually really just helped frame in my head and my heart that I am creative, and it helped me to lean into that more. And I actually think, and I do believe, it helped me to download greater innovation and greater solution and greater rigor and grit to not only help myself in this space, but it really switched the light on for me. I really wanted to help others in this space. So that malleableness in our brain, that sense of I'm not just one thing, but maybe there's things about me that I haven't discovered yet, and maybe I need to call it out in myself and, be actually brave and call it out in others.
It takes courage. It does take courage. And that was the third thing. The third thing was that it's more of a social reason that, it's people are afraid of failure. It's scary to take a risk. And that is a huge part of creativity, is the risk-taking element and the being okay with this might not work out. So that would have taken courage for you. And that is, I guess it is the The exciting part about it is that's when growth happens. That's when you have, when you've taken that risk, you've utilized that courage. It's obviously brought out fruit in your life.
Absolutely.
And, I think that is one of the ways that we can challenge this dying off of creativity, of genius level creativity that Dr. Land discovered is happening in children. If we can give them that courage to take risks, to put themselves out there, and to know that it's okay if this doesn't work out, and if you're not, if you don't love this, or if, you're not the best at this, or, the plans don't work. If we can create that, then maybe, we can support the genius level creativity staying all the way through.
And I think the word there is permission. We give each other permission and space for trial and error. In the business sense, we say research and development, whatever term you want to use. We have to kind of lose the shame of things not working out, or we have to lose the shame of things being at 80%. It might not be the 100%, but really value getting alongside a friend and going, hey, do you reckon we could do something here?
Yeah.
And, allowing ourselves for it not to be curated. I think more and more on social media, it's less about this curating this beautiful life. And I think there's more and more permission and excitement about the authentic, within the world of AI and all that's happening there. The human elements in us are going to crave authentic creativity. And that's really what we want to call out in our children. And that's what we want to call out in each other. And I think this is going to be a great space for that.
Yes, I agree. And you talked about coming alongside people. That's obviously something that you do. So when you work with varying expressions of creativity, what are some of the common themes that you see amongst those that you coach?
Yes. Well, firstly, the mindset. We've talked a bit about that. And I love to talk about truth telling. So if it's coaching or in an advisory setting, I really try and get to the honesty of it, not just in our own minds, like, where might the pressure points be in our own minds, but actually in reality. So my favorite thing is to come alongside entrepreneurs and pioneers, people who themselves have got these great ideas. And they might be they're always at varying points of that. Some are 2-3 years in, some are 20 years in, some are just come with the idea. And I love to come alongside and say, okay, what is it going to take? And really start to plot through. Most people have, their artistic expression and their idea, as I said, but it's that other side of the coin as to, okay, how do we get this thing into reality? And how do we get this, some legs on this dream? And so it's boring things like timelines and schedules and accountability and growth and development in themselves, in their leadership of themselves, in their how are they still creating space for their family when they come home? It's kind of a holistic, not necessarily the idea, but the foundation to help it be sustainable, to live on longer than, just in their heart and head. So that's mostly kind of what I lean into. And there's lots of common themes around that. Most people, it's time, it's energy. Often these are not their sole responsibilities. Often people are bivocational, they've got part-time this and part-time that. And, so it's the tension of the wrestle between priorities and, getting not the ducks in a row, but getting the right adjustments in place to keep it moving. Yeah.
So what's some of the low-hanging fruit? Like, what are some of the strategies that you start with?
I often start with strengths. So when you're talking, let's say an entrepreneur, let's say someone who there might just be themselves, or there might be a handful of people around them. And this can be in a business setting, but most often it's their labors of love, their projects of love are turning into businesses. So what the low-lying fruit there is that really understanding what are the things that only they can do and what are the things that they need to start to delegate. And that's a really tricky pressure point, because the reason we look into strengths is because we're starting to understand, kind of what are the things that you're good at, what are the things that are energizing you, what are the things that you're known for. And then because they're pioneers and they're entrepreneurs, they're often carrying 35 different hats or wearing 35 different hats and all the skills. You'll know this. You'll know this through and through. And so what we need to start to pry out of their beautiful hands is like, what could you get someone else to be doing? And it might be in a volunteer capacity or planning towards what can we pay others to do so that you can free up the creativity in the spaces that they're designed for. And I'm talking about their God design, you know, the way that he's built them. I always say this, and you've heard me say this, everyone can do everything. Like we can all do all the things, but we can't often do all the things at the same time. And so that's the low-lying fruit is like, what are the things I really need to be doing now? And what are the things that I can schedule for later or I can delegate?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And that's something you're really good at. You're really good at the rigor. It's been such an eye-opening experience to see us work together because we come at it from two different sides of a coin. We have different process. And I feel like it is a partnership and I see similarities in other creative partnerships where someone brings more of this side of the coin, maybe more of the rigor, maybe more of the, you know, how do we then land this plane? And someone else is bringing the other side of things. And it's been what a journey. What a journey it's been.
I'm laughing because we're going to do an episode on creating a podcast one day, I think.
Are we?
And
it's not in your spreadsheet.
All the things you need to learn and learning from our workarounds. But no, it's true. I see that in friendships. I see that in marriage. You know, they're often opposites. And there is something beautiful about that, but it's a wrestle because you've got to understand where each other's coming from and allow for each other's strengths and, you know, keep the same goal. But talking on process, let's unpack that a bit more because I think there's some framework that's actually going to help people understand kind of maybe where they are at in their creative process or where the pressure points may be. So do you mind unpacking that a little bit more for us?
So when someone says, you know, what's the creative process, there are going to be different things that come up, different terms that come up, you know, different frameworks that people have built over the years and taught over the years, but they all kind of have similar themes. A lot of them are built upon the framework by Graham Wallace. I think he did this in the 1800s, and he even references, you know, a German scientist and a French mathematician, I don't know, something. He references two others, so it's not his entirely. But he had 4 phases or 4 stages, and they were preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. And like I said, others have built on this. And one framework that's based on that I really like is by Scott Jeffrey. And he kind of builds 4 archetypes around those 4 stages of creativity. Right. And he calls them the student, the wanderer, the light, and the scientist. And I really like that because you can visualize that a little bit better, I think, with that language. The imagery
is really strong. Yeah.
Yeah. We all know what a student is. So the student is there to learn. You know, it requires curiosity. And that's the first phase. And you approach every project. You're not an expert. You are curious. You don't know where it's going to go and you don't know what you need to know yet. And you're there to learn as you go. And then the next phase is the wanderer. And that's kind of that flow. And, you know, you're moving through, you're not really working within constraints yet. You have that freedom to just flow and incubate. That's based around the incubation. Of Graham Wallace, that's his word. Another one is the rumination. That one's used a lot in creativity as well. And, you know, there is a negative side to rumination where you can ruminate on something and it spirals down, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be ruminating over something subconsciously. You might be in the shower, you might be mowing the lawn or vacuuming, you might be half asleep at 2 a.m. in the morning and your brain is just working in the background. And then you get the aha moment, and that's the light. That's when, you know, that subconscious part of your brain connects with the conscious and they kind of work together in this beautiful moment. Yes. And it's not always the idea that gets completed. It's not always the one that you land with, but it moves you on to the next stage. And that's often where the adrenaline comes and the excitement and the motivation to just block out everything else and just drill into this solving this problem, whatever it is. The light is my favorite part, the illumination, which is
you're lighting up right now. I can see that this is your favorite part.
It's so exciting. It's just so exciting when you get that idea that you want to explore.
It's the energy rush as well.
Very energizing.
Dopamine,
all of that. And then you take that and you move into the scientist stage. And I think this is the stage where a lot of people drop off.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the light was exciting and maybe that idea didn't land, or maybe it hadn't been explored or pushed to its limits or refined. And I think that's where some people can drop off.
Yes.
But the next stage of the creative process is the scientist. It's the verification. It's the testing and refining and the willingness to let that original light moment go if you need to. And it requires that, testing and changing things and tweaking things. And it's also a very exciting one. It's a very frustrating phase as well.
Yes. I think it's at this stage that if you haven't yet collaborated with anyone, if you haven't yet brought anyone else into this process, this might be the phase that you need a thinking partner.
Yeah.
Someone to
a sounding board,
bounce some things off, actually get some fresh eyes, some fresh thought. And that takes humility,
Absolutely.
for someone else to kind of
vulnerability.
Oh my goodness, vulnerability, because it's probably at 40%, 50%. We're not there yet. They might not fully get it. It's all of that. It's it can be a very raw.
And you have to choose those people wisely because,
Absolutely.
You can take something to someone who just goes, oh, that's great, you're amazing. And that's not actually helpful all the time.
Cheerleaders. We don't need a cheerleader right now. We need we need discernment, wisdom, and a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So it helps me even with something like creative writing to hear someone else read it out loud.
Wow.
And that requires vulnerability because it's like, here's something that's really personal. I poured myself into it. Can you read it out loud? So yes, get their thoughts, but also it helps see it from their perspective. But that's part of all. Yeah, that's the scientist. That's the verification phase.
Do you think, Lauren, some people might actually avoid that phase altogether and then just as soon as the light moment happens, as soon as it's at 80%, bring it out to the world, and it might actually be too soon?
Yes.
She needs that refinement, that rigor, that, a little bit of feedback.
And that's a tricky one.
Great.
It's hard to know where the line is because if some things you do just have to get it out there and refine as you go. Sometimes people wait till something is perfect and it's never going to get out there. So it is hard. It's all contextual. Yes. It's hard to know where the line is. Sometimes you've just got to start and it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So that is a tricky one. It's going to require some intuition and some bravery and some, I don't know, maybe it'll fail, maybe it won't.
It's really true. And I think that's something I talk a lot with people I work with is the sense of like, what does done look like? And even giving it some language around, okay, we're at silver here. We're going to release it at silver. We know it's not gold yet. We want to just put some shared language around this, that we're testing this thing out. This is prototype. We're piloting it, or whatever the language is, but that framing it in your mind that it's okay to then bring it back into the workshop and tweak and adjust and refine. And that's particularly helpful when you're working with more than one person, is getting a bit of shared language around what phase are we in, and what does done look like at this phase? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting to see how our guests talk through this because they haven't necessarily used the same language, but we've seen a lot of the same themes come up.
Yes, it's so cool. You're going to love it, guys. Stay with us.
I can't wait. On that, should we talk about who we have coming up later this week?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So excited for our first guest. This is someone who Lauren's known for a long time, but is new to me. And I was so impressed, so inspired, and wanted to go out and buy some roosters. So that's a little sneak peek for you. But do you want to intro a little bit more, Lauren?
Yes. So we have Josh McIntosh joining us later this week, and it's very exciting. It was such a good conversation. Always a good conversation with Josh McIntosh. And he had some real gold to share. So I'm excited for everyone who will get to listen to that one.
Amazing. Watch this space. Lovely to chat always, Lauren.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Wrestle.
Don't forget to subscribe, find us on socials, and share with your friends.